Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the 13th of January, 2014, the podcast that takes the cake and runs with it. This is your host, Shane Killian. Joining me again this week is Charles Thomas. Welcome back to the show.
Hi.
Okay, more big news about the NSA and your online security, and it's big. You remember back in September when we talked about an NSA backdoor into the encryption?
Yes, and I was silent for most of it because I didn't even know what you were talking about.
Well, just to review, this was one of the Edward Snowden leaks. And there's an encryption standard called Dual Elliptic Curve Deterministic Random Bit Generation, or Dual ECDRBG. That's not the important part. The important part is it's incredibly insecure. I've talked about this before. Quality encryption needs good random numbers, and apparently the random numbers in this thing are pretty predictable. And not only that, but it's a slower algorithm. So we talked about it, but for the longest time it's been known to be insecure since like 2004 or something, but no one really cared about it because even if they didn't know it was insecure, it was a slower algorithm, so who in their right mind would use it? But then we figured out that RSA, and if you don't know who RSA are, if you work with computer encryption and security, you know RSA. They're the big guys in computer security. Well, it turns out that RSA was not only using this algorithm for their BSafe toolkit, but they had it as the default. Programmers had to make the deliberate choice to select another. And of course, if you're most programmers, you're probably just going to trust the RSA to choose the most secure default.
Well, of course. I mean, they're the big guys. I mean, it's like going to, say, McDonald's or going to anything else. Go to what's the best type of place you go for extra security or what have you.
And you trust them to give you a hamburger that's not moldy and has worms all running through it.
For the most part.
And so at the time we were like, why did RSA do that? It was stupid and we didn't really have an answer. Now we have an answer. Apparently from two different sources that would know, according to Reuters, RSA was paid $10 million by the NSA to implement this secure protocol as the default.
It's always something, It's always a little like, it's always that way. It's always been this way.
Yeah, and to put this $10 million figure into perspective, it's about a third of their annual revenues.
Wow.
Yeah,
So instead of actually doing, what they're supposed to do, protect us, they're buying off this huge security group so they could easily break into them. Use the code so they can easily break into them.
Well, the NSA hasn't commented on it. RSA posted a response that was a denial that didn't actually deny anything.
Oh.
But they said, we made the decision to use dual ECDRBG as the default in BSafe toolkits in 2004 in the context of an industry-wide effort to develop newer, stronger methods of encryption. But it's a worse, slower method of encryption.
Thank you, NSA.
So they went on. This algorithm is only one of multiple choices available within BSafe toolkits, and users have always been free to choose whichever one best suits their needs. But this was the default. I mean, it'd been one thing if it had just been there and no one selected because who would, but this is the default.
And exactly. It's, again, people they put their trust in these companies. When you have a system that had this much power, RSA, the NSA doesn't care. They are still doing the same stuff. So,
because they also said, we continued using the algorithm as an option within BSafe toolkits as it gained acceptance as a NIST standard, that's the government standards organization, and because of its value in FIPS compliance. When concern surfaced around the algorithm in 2007, we continued to rely upon NIST as the arbiter of that discussion. Well, I guess that's what you get for trusting the government.
Yep. But, again, hopefully they've learned a valuable lesson about this. Or if not, well, people are going to find another security firm and they will go...
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I want to impress upon everyone how bad this is. The RSA are the top dogs when it comes to encryption and security. If the NSA got to the RSA, who else have they got to?
Exactly.
I mean, did they get to the certificate authorities? That's really scary if you think about it.
Yeah, it is. And again, this is people's private data. Just because we have this technology, just because we have this, it does not give the government any right to invade or do anything what it wants with this technology, and don't use the cover of terrorism and such. Once upon a time, they used communism to get away to basically get away with all this type of stuff, and the same thing's happening here. So we have to protect you because of this. It's always an other. When you have a group, an other that always wants to protect you from another, there's always a very malicious type of goal from it.
Yeah, so now in protest, at least 8 prominent security researchers who were invited to speak at the next RSA conference have decided to boycott it, and they've canceled their talks.
Wow.
So people are responding to this, so hopefully RSA will take note. What's interesting is that their keynote speaker is apparently still on, and that's Stephen Colbert. Well, you know, it'll just be interesting to hear what he has to say. I wonder if he's going to comment on this in any way.
And hopefully people will learn and how to say, hey, I want with this new technology, and hopefully you're like, you know what my privacy is, regardless of what technology we use going forward, is private. And hopefully this company, the RSA, learns from this and say, you know what, we'll never do this again.
Yeah, and the good thing is this is really bringing a lot of attention to it, and people are really starting to beef up security. So hopefully some good will come of it. Okay, so we've covered marijuana becoming legal in Colorado, and we've also been talking on and off about e-cigs. Here's a story where the two come together. So in Colorado, you can purchase up to an ounce of marijuana at a time, or a quarter ounce if you're from out of state, and you can't smoke it in public. But now they're selling e-cigarettes made not with nicotine, but with cannabis oil. It's perfectly legal to smoke in public because you're not actually smoking. It's discreet. People can't tell the difference between that and a regular e-cig. No one can tell you're doing it, so that's what they're doing.
And that is brilliant. And even though marijuana, and it has been proven countless times that it's not dangerous, it's a lot less dangerous than alcohol or tobacco.
Total number of people in history who have died from the toxic effects of marijuana, 0.
Exactly. And this actually will say, hey, you can smoke this thing and still get a buzz and not really have any type of effects. This is a good thing. This is a positive thing.
Here's the real thing about it. So remember, you can get up to an ounce at a time, but a single cartridge for an e-cig is just 150 milligrams. It costs about $15, and it can last for weeks. A visitor can legally buy 47 of these cartridges at one time, and a Colorado resident can stock up on 188 of them at once.
Wow. I know there's going to be a lot of people ordering Papa John's around there, I guarantee you that. But, you know, again, it's like if no one's getting hurt by that, and honestly, I'm not going to smoke marijuana. I'm not going to run out and get these e-cigarettes, what have you. But I think this is an overall good thing, a good positive, is that it's going to, in fact, even if regular e-cigarettes have less nicotine, toxic than tobacco, what have you, and people are using that too. So again, there's going to be no real side effects. So I think this is a very good thing. And of course, I guarantee you, which people in the people in the comments, you can have a little fun here. That how long before this will be made illegal or what have you? Which states around Colorado, or heck, even Colorado itself, will probably say, hey, we'll probably start arresting or basically finding people having, like, say, more than one of these, or more, 2 or 3.
But that's interesting. How would they tell? They look just like the normal e-cigs. If you go into Colorado and bring out your e-cigs, how would they know?
Well, they'll show us your papers. I don't know. They'll do something that will basically destroy the rights of the free private citizens. People in the comments, tell us how long you think it's going to last. I say it's going to be 4 weeks. Shane, what do you think?
I don't try to make predictions where government is concerned because no one can. But I tell you, the only thing that would get me to try it, because apparently, according to one of the commenters, they have some different varieties, and they have one that's apparently a CBD vaporizer. CBD is cannabidiol. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. It's non-psychoactive, and apparently it's a very effective painkiller. That'd be the only reason I try, because I gotta tell you, chronic pain is no fun.
Yeah.
And if I could get something for $15 that would keep me basically out of pain for a couple of weeks, hey, sign me up for that.
I'm right there with you. It's been proven, like you said, the death count is 0. People still have this whole notion that marijuana is it leads to gateway drugs. Even though if you want to go that route, when tobacco or alcohol or what have you would be gateway drugs. In fact, what about the numerous pain medications that are going out? We'll probably have a huge death count than marijuana will ever have. Maybe marijuana is not the worst thing happening, and hopefully we'll get into a nice national dialogue. Maybe we should take Portugal's act, at least decriminalizing it and having more people in prisons and save not only money but also lives as well.
All I have to say is, given that marijuana is so relatively safe compared to like alcohol and tobacco, if you think marijuana is so dangerous that it should be illegal, even for medicinal uses, even for people who are trying to stay out of pain or whatever, and you think that alcohol and tobacco should remain legal, I don't want to talk to you. I'm sorry, I don't.
It's just, the evidence is already there. The war on drugs is one of the most evil institutions, because not only does it destroy lives, but also props up the governments, because, hey, you give, welfare for parents, because, single fathers who get caught in drugs, they get locked up, and then mothers have to go into welfare. You have, again, police get a lot more money to arrest quarters and such. In fact, I remember there's actually a status that actually 97% of people who get arrested with drug offense or what have you have to take a deal to go to jail, even if they're guilty or innocent. It's just crazy. Even though I am not taking any drugs or what have you, I have no dog in this fight. Again, it just shows you how positive the free market is. With e-cigarettes and e-marijuana cigarettes, we might actually have more business, more money going in the economy and such.
Hackers, terrorists, the NSA. But I repeat myself. Your online security is under attack, and the weakest point is your password. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass plugs into your browser and allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords anywhere on the web, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers and all your computers, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, membership info, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications and even mobile devices, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. Bogosity.tv and all of its services are hosted at GoDaddy. I've been a satisfied GoDaddy customer for over 10 years now. Their prices are great, and their 24/7 support is second to none. So I'm happy to be able to give you this special offer. Just sign up for any new domain, web hosting, email, or many other services and get 35% off by typing in the code WOWNOBOGON. That's WOWNOBOGON. Because there's nothing bogus about these savings on quality internet service. Get your own .com with a personalized email address, or establish your online business in a snap, all for 35% off. Just go to GoDaddy.com and use the code WOWNOBOGON. Well, from our What Goes Around Comes Around department comes the continuing story of the futile attempts by self-righteous idiots to filter porn on the internet.
I guarantee you they never heard of sites like DeviantArt, Furfinity, or Rule 34, or whatever those were. Or God forbid they go over to 4chan. I think they might just go insane.
Their heads might explode.
Yes.
Well, since the late 1990s, when the Communications Decency Act was ruled unconstitutional, people have tried all sorts of ways of filtering porn on the internet, using software like Cyber Patrol and NetNanny, and guess what? They don't work.
Oh, they're surprised by this? Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, who knew?
But not only do they let lots of porn through, they block lots of legitimate sites as well. And here are some sites that were historically affected by porn filters: Quaker Oats, the National Journal of Sexual Orientation Law, the Heritage Foundation, the Horniman Museum, the National Organization for Women, and Beaver College even had to change its name to Arcadia University.
Wow. And those places are horrible places, aren't they? I mean, oh my goodness, the world's coming to an end and everything. It's just,
But even more disturbingly, they block websites about health, sex education, and even rape crisis. There have been cases where sexually abused children didn't know where to turn, so they tried going online to get support and information, and they couldn't because the porn filters blocked the sites.
Gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh my gosh, we have to protect the children, but in the end, the children are not really protected, are they?
No, they're not. So now, I know we have a lot of UK worshippers here, and they're ready to jump all over us when we criticize their beloved country, and I'm sure they'll deny this tooth and nail. Because, the UK is all for free speech and civil liberties and everything that is good about democracy. Yeah, they passed a law mandating ISPs to put up porn filters, and guess what? They still don't work.
Of course they don't.
In fact, they're blocking access to technology and civil liberties websites, including the Unix user group Usenix, Amnesty International, Slash.Linux.com, Linux Today, Ars Technica, OpenBSD, and FreeBSD, and many others.
Yeah. In fact, I think even Blogspot.com, I'm looking at it like, that's blocked. I'm like, really?
But guess what? They even blocked the website of Claire Perry, MP for Devizes, who was one of the biggest voices for the porn filtering law. Now, is that delicious irony or what?
That is beautiful right there. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the best way to actually block porn is actually, monitor what your kids are doing online. You can do this.
Right.
You can actually monitor what your kid's doing online.
That's what I do. I don't put filters up trying to keep them out of places. I just keep an eye on what they're doing.
Exactly.
And if they go someplace that I think is inappropriate or might be damaging to them or whatever, I talk to them about it and just try to have a dialogue with them.
Exactly.
That's all you need to do.
Exactly. Don't be afraid. Don't talk to them. They're your kids. They're not going to come and rip you apart or anything. It's just, we have governments try to be your parent to your kids. You get stuff like this. You get porn filters blocking MPs' websites, which is hilarious, but also you get people who are getting blocking the EFF. Heck, if I ever have a child who looking up the EFF or Amnesty, I would be happy they'd look at a website like this. That should be very good. You should be saying, yes, this is a very important thing. You should be learning about this.
Well, they're not doing it on purpose. They're just trying to make these filters, and these other sites are just kind of getting caught in as false positives.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, when they find them, they go in and they make manual exceptions in the rules, but that's just chasing a wild horse or something.
It's crazy. It's all good intentions. I mean, think of the old good quote, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. So, again, I know what they're trying to do, but once again, you need to really start maybe we should be really more responsible and say, hey, let the parents talk to have a dialogue with the kids. That actually will help them. I honestly think it would be a lot more positive stuff will come out of that. They just say, okay, we'll just block everything and be done with it.
Yeah. And guess what? They're also blocking sex education and rape crisis sites as well. Award-winning sex education site Bish UK was blocked, as was the Edinburgh Women's Rape and Sexual Abuse Centre, Sexual Health Scotland, Doncaster Domestic Abuse Helpline, and Reducing the Risk, which is a domestic abuse help site.
Wow. There are so many people who probably needed that help and they couldn't get it. And that to me is just really heartless. And the unintended horrible consequences, at the end of the day, it doesn't help anybody.
Well, I have to give a dope slap to CNET's Joe Sletlick, who wrote, quote, obviously it's early days for these filters, and I'm sure they'll get better. What? Early days? They've been around since the late 1990s, at least, and they don't work any better now than they did then.
Again, it's just that people are just clinging on to this. Well, they'll eventually get better. It won't get better. Admit the loss and move on. At the end of the day, if you have a government that can block these sites, you're tampering with people's civil liberties. And again, and people who need help. These are sites that help people get through one of the most darkest periods in their lives.
Well, and even worse, if parents say, oh, well, we have these filters, I don't have to do anything, and these filters don't work, then they're not being as involved in their children's lives as they need to be when they do go out and find all the sites that make it through the filter.
Exactly. You have to be more involved. And I know some parents are busy or what have you, but, you have to be more involved in your children's lives. So you have to. That is someone, that is someone you have to look out for and protect. And in this day and age, you have to do that. I mean, when I was a little kid, my parents had to say, you used to have only an hour online.
We had 0 hours online because it didn't exist.
Yes, but it's just stuff like that. You have to be more responsible.
But here's the real problem. There is no such thing as pornography. The things that society calls pornography are classified that way not based on any objective criteria, but on feelings of this offends me or this titillates me, and it can vary wildly from one individual to another. And even the courts have had trouble defining it. I think we've all heard that line from Jacobellis v. Ohio, where Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart said, "I know it when I see it." Later on, he said he regretted using that phrase, but there's no "I know it when I see it" algorithm you can use to write a filter. Yeah. You can't make a firewall rule and type that in and expect it to work.
Well, parents need to be involved. It's just that people are not lazy. They're just they're just really ignorant at this type of stuff. And hopefully, like I said before, hopefully this will wake people up and things will get better.
All right, more on Edward Snowden. And really, I don't see any logical reason why Snowden shouldn't be considered a hero. And I certainly don't understand how exposing criminal activity should itself be a criminal act.
Yeah, again, I was talking this earlier today, and, my family, they look and say, what this guy may have done. I mean, at first I didn't think it was, Edward Snowden was, he's evil, what have you. But they're like, what? When you look at all this stuff, you see all this information he's releasing, it's like, what? Maybe he wasn't, evil, what have you. And people are like, what? This is wrong. The government's doing is wrong. They're starting to realize that, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, but unfortunately, a YouGov poll shows that not a lot of Americans support amnesty for Snowden. In fact, overall, only 25% support amnesty. The good news is that only 30% oppose it, so that leaves a large portion of the population that we can still convince about it.
I don't know. I mean, my father thinks he should be locked up. Some people in my family think he should be, I don't really support or oppose. I don't know what type of thing. Part of me think he should have just stayed here and just said, here, bam, and told us. And actually, I guarantee you would probably been at least pardoned, I think, maybe, but I don't know.
I don't know. Given what happened to Chelsea Manning, I don't think so.
I know, but yeah, I am leaning towards amnesty, but maybe he should have released it here, but I can see why he didn't, because what's the main people's talking point of the last couple of months was not all the Edward Snowden stuff. No, it was the Duck Dynasty guy who got kicked off and then got back on A&E. It falls on deaf ears. That's what it is. That's the real depressing, sad part. The same thing with Private Manning is that I remember watching a video about this. It doesn't matter if he gives it out. It's first you need strong reporting and a public that is willing to learn or willing to listen. And if the public is not willing to listen, learn, or even care, it's white noise.
Well, what's shameful here is how terrible Democrats polled. For approval of the NSA collection program, 42% of Democrats approved strongly or somewhat, as opposed to only 30% of Republicans and 25% of independents.
Yeah.
38% of Democrats said it was justified, compared to 25% of Republicans and 22% of independents.
Wow.
And it gets worse. And before I go any further, I want to point out this is a poll of the public. This is not what Democratic politicians think. This is what actual rank-and-file Democrats think. So no more of this, oh, don't blame us, it's just the politicians. None of that crap. Democrats support this stuff more than any other political affiliation. Only 33% of Democrats have a favorable opinion of Snowden, compared to 46% of Republicans and 44% of independents. 33% of Democrats approved of the Snowden leak, compared to 40% of Republicans and 46% of independents. Only 22% of Democrats oppose his prosecution, compared to 24% of Republicans and 31% of independents. 21% of Democrats supported amnesty for Snowden only if he agreed not to release any more information and he told the government what he took, compared to 27% of Republicans and independents. And only 24% of Democrats support Russia giving Snowden asylum, compared to 30% of Republicans and 36% of independents.
Wow. Maybe I'm just cynical, If it was under a Republican leader, I think the numbers would be reversed.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be, and that's the problem, is that people, they stand against, it's just like just switching seat chairs. It's just like...
It's the we and the not we.
Yeah.
The Democrats are we, so it's good. The Republicans are not we, so it's bad.
Yeah, and props to the Democrats and Republicans who do stand up and see the problem.
Sure.
That is good, and I think we should be applauding that. But it's just that, you know, when you have the power, and people who do, they only care about themselves. They only care about their party, their team, their tribe, winning and getting power.
That's it. There really is no way to make them look good here. So next time you hear them going on about how they're the party of civil liberties and they value your privacy, don't believe them for a second.
Exactly. And it's depressing. I was, you know, hearing all this stuff from Democrats. All this stuff, like, people were like, they were marching on the streets. They were, have millions of people. You saw this too, right, Shane? Millions of people marching, saying they're against the wars. Now, it's only a small handful.
A half a dozen libertarians and a tumbleweed. That's what you'll see at anti-war rallies now.
Yeah, it's sad. And I'm fully convinced that once a Republican gets back in office, which it will probably happen, they will be right back on those streets again. They'll be right back on them saying it was Bush and insert Republican here's fault, not Clinton's, not President Obama. It wasn't that. It's always the other guy's fault. It's always another. There's always another with these guys, and that's how they get power. They derive from everyone saying it's always another. And you see people on the third party. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I saw that chart too. I'm hopeful that, you know, there's going to be some changes going on, because once upon a time I was right there with the Democrat Party, but now I feel like they left me. They just left, man. It's just depressing.
If they were ever really with you to begin with.
Yeah.
History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's Liberty Classroom. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, Liberty Classroom teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects. And when you sign up, you'll get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code BUGOSITY in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit libertyclassroom.com. You say you don't like Bitcoin? Why not? Oh, because it's not gold. No problem. Just go to coins.bugosity.tv and you'll be taken to Coinable, where you can buy gold or silver coins or bars with your Bitcoins, with literally up-to-the-minute spot pricing. Now there's no reason not to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. Whether you're a Bitcoin miner, service operator, Bitcoin business owner, or market speculator, you can get gold and silver from reputable dealers. And Coinable has Bitcoin liquidity for fast processing of your order. Coinable even utilizes a special shipping infrastructure to ensure that your investment arrives safely at your door. And you know what? By going to coins.bugosity.tv, you won't pay a penny more, a Satoshi more for your purchase. But you'll help this podcast. You can even sell your gold and silver for Bitcoin as well. Coinable is your Bitcoin to gold marketplace. So go to coins.bugosity.tv and start turning your Bitcoins into gold now.
Okay, so it's time to try to keep our heads from exploding from this week's biggest bogon emitter. And this week, it goes to anti-vaccine crusader and osteopath Sherry Tenpenny.
Oh, God, I saw the video, and I almost wanted to punch my computer. This stuff right here pissed me off to no end. When I see the stories of, in New York, that there's the return of measles, and the rise of all these other, like, little kids and such.
Coming from a chiropractic background, I was not vaccinated as a child, and I had measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and pertussis. I missed most of the 3rd grade when I was growing up, and they wanted to hold me back a year.
Hey, it sounds like a good reason why you should have been vaccinated. I mean, what am I missing here?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Thank God that my parents got me vaccinated. When I hear this stuff that comes out, and it's been debunked many times over, it's still parading. They say, well, we just want to have the debate. And the debate has already been done, and they want to hear, like, oh, well, we're right. They want to be playing play scientists, yet they ignore the real scientists who actually do the research, who knows what's doing anything else. And there it is. It's already been proven that it's false, and it's still going around. It's like, no, it's not the government trying to kill you this way. It's not that way. And you're basically not even attacking the monster. You're trying to destroy something that is actually helping people and saving lives. It's downright monstrous and downright evil. I just saw my cousin, little baby cousin today, and I'm like, I don't want this to happen to him. I do not want that to happen to any person who went there. Oh man.
So in September of 2000, when I went to the NVIC meeting, which is the National Vaccine Information Center, I heard all of these people talking about problems with vaccines. So I went home and I thought the best place to start was looking at documents from the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC. And I read the 1998 version of General Recommendations of Vaccination. And I said, this 42-page paper is it? This is the basis and the science and the research behind vaccination?
No, that's a summary of the science and the research. The basis is hundreds, if not thousands, of peer-reviewed scientific papers, as well as the numerous studies that were undertaken to get the vaccines approved in the U.S. and other countries.
And this is 2014. This is the age of the internet, Google, and everything else. You can look this stuff up. You can, and it might take you a while or what have you. You can look it up and you can find this stuff. There is no excuse.
Yeah.
No excuse. And they say, oh, just go look this stuff. I found it. Say, no, you need to look that stuff up first.
They tell you to do your research.
And they don't do anything else but theirs. It's just.
But it's really telling. Listen to what she said about it.
So, well, maybe I better look into this a little bit farther. So over the course of the last 9 years or so, I have spent thousands of hours of my own time, approaching 10,000 hours of time, researching problems that could be caused by vaccination.
Did you get that? She didn't research the safety record. She only investigated the problems. So right there, right out of her mouth, is her admission of confirmation bias.
And I guarantee you that people are like, wow, maybe she's really onto something. No, she's not. If you don't get your child vaccinated, you'll see the rise. You saw the rise of measles and all this stuff that happened in New York City and across this country. People, vaccinate your kids. Seriously. Just don't listen to these people because they ruin lives.
And I found that there is an enormous body of information that people don't talk about when it comes to vaccines.
Yeah, because it's a conspiracy.
Ooh, it's a conspiracy. But that's brilliant because it's all one big plan to keep your kids safe and healthy for what? Communism? Of course.
They don't talk about vaccine injury, vaccine damage, what kinds of problems vaccines cause inside of the immune system.
Maybe because there aren't any?
Again, they don't do research. They don't do any research.
So since that time, I've gotten very involved with letting people know that there was another side of this story beyond what we're basically told, that vaccines are safe, effective, protect you, and harmless.
But once again, we're seeing this implication that just because another side exists, it's just as valid. But the prior probability of vaccines being safe and effective is way, way, way higher than the prior probability of her claim that vaccines are dangerous and don't work.
I don't understand this. I just don't understand how people, with the information they have right now, the vaccinations, you did videos about this anti-vaccination yourself, and you said if the more people don't vaccinate, well, the death count is immense. It is a very, very high death rate if you have multiple people who don't have who vaccinate.
Just like we saw in Swansea and lots of other places that we've covered here on the podcast, when that vaccination rate goes down, the diseases come back.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if you vaccinate there as well, because even still, you don't have the herd immunity. And that is what makes the difference. It's a herd immunity. It's just like even people say, oh, I never vaccinated before and my family's fine and everything else. No, the reason why your family is fine and you never got sick is because the hundreds of people around your community vaccinated. That's the reason why. And they still say, well, the science is still inconclusive. Then I just throw my hands up and say, fine, whatever. I give up.
So it's just inevitable after all that Sherry Tenpenny would be this week's biggest bogon emitter. And now it's time to scrub up the residue from this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And you know what? I don't think we've ever done the Young Turks before. This might be a first.
Yeah, I actually like the Young Turks. For the most part, I feel like they do have some very interesting stories that no one goes and talks about.
It may be my bias, because I don't really watch them. I only see the videos that people send to me and say, look how stupid they are. But I have seen them say some stupid things over time. And maybe there's this whole bunch of other episodes out there where they say good things that I never saw because no one sent them to me. But I don't know. They've been dumb before.
Yeah, I know. Just going that whole gun control stuff, and trust me, there's a lot of stupidity there too. But overall, they do good stuff. And even though they have a bit of a liberal bias, they go on record and actually attack President Obama on his these stuff like campaign finance, or Edward Snowden. They're actually behind him 100%. So
that's good.
Yeah, so there are some really good stuff. But this story right here, yeah.
All the bogus fear-mongering coming around from the Fukushima nuclear disaster. And we covered this in pretty big detail all that time ago, and I even linked to that one blog where a nuclear scientist actually put all the data. But listen to what these guys are saying.
Some of the first responders in Japan after the tsunami and earthquake are now developing serious health issues because of the Fukushima nuclear reactor. So some of the ailments that members of our own Navy are suffering from right now include cancer, thyroid disease, and uterine bleeding.
Jesus.
One person by the name of Lindsay Cooper says the following: my thyroid is so out of whack that I can lose 60 to 70 pounds in 1 month and then gain it back the next. My menstrual cycle lasts for 6 months at a time, and I cannot get pregnant. It's ruined me.
Now, what's interesting about all these claims is, first, there's no coherency whatsoever among them. They're just a hodgepodge of symptoms. And second, none of them are actually the symptoms of radiation poisoning. I mean, this is Ellen Brockovich all over again.
Because it's nuclear. It's a evil nuclear monster and such, and it's going to destroy us all. And it's funny because weren't they on a nuclear sub?
Yeah, the Ronald Reagan, it wasn't a sub. The Ronald Reagan was a nuclear aircraft carrier.
Oh, yeah, it was a nuclear aircraft carrier.
But understand the Ronald Reagan was over 100 miles away from the plant at the time. So keep that in mind.
Jeez, man, hearing the stories of what happened to those guys on the USS Ronald Reagan when they went to go help is devastating. I mean, one story after another it just rips your guts inside. And what they're saying is, look, the Japanese government told us it was safe, and mainly it was not the Japanese government as much as the actual electric company who's operating the plant, who said, oh, don't worry about it.
Of course they're going to say that.
Yeah.
Anytime you're dealing with radiation and a nuclear reactor, you have to go against what someone is telling you and go with your better judgment.
Look, unless you're a nuclear frickin' physicist, you don't have a better judgment about that. You just have the paranoia of an ignorant populace who doesn't understand what radiation is or how it can damage you. It's no different from the moon hoaxer saying no one can survive the Van Allen belts. No different.
At least 70 have been stricken with some form of radiation sickness, and of those, at least half are suffering from some form of cancer.
Notice how she doesn't give any context to these figures. Basically, we end up with 35 people have cancer. Out of how many? And what risk groups were they in?
Yeah, that's odd. I mean, if this is a real, oh my gosh, these people have cancer, then how many? 35 out of what?
Well, the total crew complement of the Ronald Reagan is 3,200 shipmen and 2,480 airmen for a total of 5,680 crewmen. And 35 of those got cancer. That's 0.6%. But I guess if this idiot woman said 0.6% of the crew got cancer, she wouldn't be able to scare anyone.
Yeah, it's all fear-mongering. And that's the real sad part, is that you have to use fear-mongering to basically sell headlines, to get YouTube hits. And that's the real sad truth here, is that they go out and say, oh my gosh, 149 people died because of mad cow. You keep saying that, even though, how many people live on the planet who eat meat or something? It's probably like
it's basically nobody died of mad cow. You have to go like way decimal points.
Exactly. It's only 0. Oh, that's not much. But if you hear like, oh my God, 35 people died, that's a major concern. But it's not really.
Well, 0.6% is 600 per 100,000. Now, it's been over 2.5 years since the disaster. That's an annual incidence rate of about 250 per 100,000. It's about the same annual incidence rate of women getting breast cancer and the annual incidence rate of prostate cancer among African Americans. And that risk increases with age, so chances are we probably would have seen about 35 people from that ship get cancer during that same time period.
Yeah, there's the stats right there, and I don't know why they didn't go over there. Again, I like the Young Turks, and I felt like they should not be falling for this same type of idiocy that, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, all these type of other places that fall for this stuff. But it seems that sadly they fall for the same stuff and say, oh my God, 35 people, have this cancer, and that's horrifying for them. But when you look at this whole thing, it's not really that terrifying. So they should actually do some actual reporting.
Well, and the way radiation sickness works, if you can survive the first few weeks after exposure to radiation, you're basically good. The only risk you have beyond that is an increased risk of cancer. While you might experience weight loss during those weeks, after that there's no indication whatsoever that radiation will keep causing these sudden weight loss and gains and loss and gains. And while it might damage your thyroid, the damage would make it less active, not hyperactive.
Again, not good reporting.
No, just some fact-checking here, people.
Yeah, a little fact-checking, you realize it's not that not horrible. And by the way, you have like 5,200 people on this huge aircraft carrier, and only 35 of them get sick. You have to look and say, maybe there's something, BS about this whole thing.
Well, let's get something clear about this. The explosion at the plant was not a nuclear explosion. It was a chemical explosion due mainly to hydrogen gas. And there's something else we also need to keep in mind as we go through this. There's a difference between radiation and radioactive material. Light is a form of radiation. Heat is a form of radiation. Microwaves, radio waves, all these are radiation. We're talking about a certain kind of radiation here, which is emitted by radioactive particles. Radioactive material is material that emits radiation. There are radioactive isotopes that emit different kinds of radiations, and the Young Turks don't say which material they're talking about, because they clearly don't even understand this themselves, but since they're talking about thyroid issues, it's most likely they're talking about iodine-131. And this is a byproduct of uranium-235 fission. It emits beta and gamma radiation. It gets into the thyroid, and basically it can cause thyroid cancer. But it's also used in medicine as a treatment for overactive thyroids, and the best way to block it is with potassium iodide pills. And I live near a nuclear power plant, and they pass around these Ki pills every so often, just in case there's a radiation leak. And here's the thing. I-131 has a half-life of only 8 days, so it'll be pretty much back down to background levels in a few weeks, and by that time, it's done all the damage it's going to do. So keep that in mind as we listen further.
Because people got so sick, everybody on board started having uncontrollable diarrhea.
If they had diarrhea that quickly after exposure, the radiation poisoning would have killed them in a very short time. Since they're not dead 2.5 years later, I think we can safely conclude that something else caused the diarrhea. So, again, what we have here is some people got diarrhea on a ship with over 5,000 crew members.
Yeah. Again, it seems like the Young Turks did not do any fact-checking or research here. And it's just really disappointing because this is basically a YouTube channel they actually seem to have some points. They do get it on point, but this is just, wow, how can they fail so hard on this? It is amazing.
Oh, we're just getting started.
From my reading of the case, it appears the biggest problem was that the radiation was in the water. And they take the water in and desalinate it and then use it in the faucets, the showers, etc. So they were all showering, literally showering in that radioactive water.
Well, seawater has to be desalinated to remove the salt to make it fit for drinking and bathing. Since radioactive ions are larger than salt molecules, the desalinization process removes those too. There won't be any radioactive material left in water that's gone through desalinization.
So, again, they're basically talking from their rear ends. So
Yeah.
no fact checking and no real hard reporting. Why aren't you looking more into it? Why aren't you doing more fact checking? Why aren't you doing this stuff instead of just saying, instead of trying to get more YouTube hits? I mean, they only have like huge number of subscribers, what have you. But at least, like, say, you know what, we're in a position to actually do some real good here. Let's look at the real hard data. Let's look at the real news or the real story. But instead, they just do this.
Unless it's just about their view counts.
Yeah.
Don't trust what the Japanese government is saying. Don't trust what the electric power company is saying. Go, get out of there, right? Get as far away from that plant as you can.
I mean, it's not like we don't know anything about the hazards of radiation and how to deal with it. Well, these morons might not, but the people on the Ronald Reagan followed the proper procedure for cleaning away any radioactive material that might have been in the dust cloud that settled on the ship. And since the Ronald Reagan is a nuclear aircraft carrier, I think we can conclude that there are people on board who know how to deal with that situation. They have the instruments on board to detect radiation, see how much it was at the time. They wouldn't have to trust the Japanese government or the power company or whoever. They could just detect it themselves.
That's true. And why didn't they talk about this stuff in the report? Bad reporting. And that's what the Young Turks did here. Terrible reporting. No one on their staff said, we should be fact-checking this, looking at this stuff. Hell, I can find this stuff on Wikipedia. I mean, I'm not an expert on radiation stuff, but if I actually would have got this story, I would actually research it, find these things, look at this stuff, so, stuff like this won't happen.
I believe we just showed you the radioactive snow. And, I mean, you saw how much it was. I mean, they're literally surrounded by the radioactive material. So it's understandable why so many of the guys on the aircraft carrier and women got so sick.
You moron, that's not radioactive snow, that's soapy water. The people on the USS Ronald Reagan are cleaning the deck with soapy water, which is exactly one of the things you would do at a time like that. In case the dust has radioactive material in it, you clean it all away, and just like that, no more radioactivity.
Wow. Wow. Just terrible stuff.
You can look at the picture and tell it's soapy water. Why would he think that's radioactive snow?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I don't care what other good things they've said about Edward Snowden or whatever. Calling that radioactive snow, it's soapy water, people.
I don't know what they was looking at. I saw that. I was like, that's not snow, that's soap and water. If you can't tell between snow and soapy water, I don't know what to say. And they're based in New York. I mean, they saw tons of snow. How the heck could they not mistake snow and soapy water? I'm like, dude, get your eyes checked. I don't know.
Maybe they think radioactive snow is different or something.
I don't know. It's just, maybe it gives you superpowers. Maybe that's it. But it's just really bad reporting and just outright stupidity on the Young Turks.
Which means that above everyone else, the Young Turks absolutely deserve to be named this week's Idiot Extraordinaire! Well, that wraps up this Help, Help, I'm Being Repressed edition of the Bogosity Podcast. Please visit the forums at bogosity.tv where you can read the show notes and join the discussion on these and other subjects. This podcast is free but not free to produce, so please donate via PayPal or Bitcoin at the top of the bogosity.tv website or down the right-hand side of the podcast page and give generously to keep this podcast going. And if you'd like to contribute to the podcast, just send a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@bogosity.tv. Put it in an audio file, and if it's good enough, it'll get played right in the podcast. Thank you for listening, and thanks once more to Charles Thomas for joining me.
No problem, Shane, and I'm hopeful for all the comments saying I repeat everything too much.
Until next time, here's a quote from Lord Acton. The danger is not that a particular class is unfit to govern. Every class is unfit to govern. The Bogosity Podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Imported License.
Bogosity.
Do you want answers to creationist claims against evolution? Would you like to know more about evolution yourself, or even engage creationists more directly, with actual peer-reviewed sources to back you up? My book, How Evolution is Scientific, is designed to show the basics of evolutionary theory and how it is so well supported using the scientific method. It's impeccably sourced, with references to the actual scientific material, and is arranged using the creationists' own criteria of what is scientific. Using their own arguments against them, see how evolution is scientific, but creationism is not, based on observations, accurate predictions, logic, and evidence. Get answers to common creationist claims, and even a primer on abiogenesis, the start of all life. It's all in my book, How Evolution is Scientific, available at Amazon and on Kindle, EPUB, and PDF as well. Get How Evolution is Scientific and never be taken in by creationists again.
People, if you don't know the difference between radioactive snow or soapy water, please go and run and play in traffic. Trust me, it'd be best if you don't breed than continue the human species. That'd be nice.